Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. Happy Monday for some people. Not for us. Not for me. Not a happy Monday. We've got a lot of things to be angry about. We'll talk a little bit about that. We've got, actually, we have a ton of things to get into on today's show, like a long list here of things to talk about. So I guess we might as well just jump right into it. Keith, we'll jump into the big story of the day. Dan Hurley turns down the Lakers, captivating the NBA. The saga over the last not even a week. It's felt like it's been months. It's been days, but this ground everything to a halt in the NBA. Everybody's focused on whether or not Dan Hurley was going to join the Lakers. Unfortunately, he said no and decided to stay with UConn. I've heard all kinds of things on this from various sides about what happened here and why it happened and that sort of stuff. But I think ultimately, I think the chance to repeat with UConn was just a big draw for him. And so he ultimately decided to stick with UConn for the time being. And we'll see if in the future he makes the jump to the pros. But that does now, Keith, this puts the Lakers in a tough spot because they got to find a coach. And the draft is coming up in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, clearly you'd rather have your coach in place before the draft, and
Sure.
hopefully, no matter who you're hiring, shouldn't have that much of an influence on your draft process. But you just rather not be dealing with that going into the final stages of, or I guess the first stages of roster building for next year, the final part of this league year to finish it out. So yeah, I think when I think about this with everything that went on with it was, I think because I watched your live show today. First off, I have to shout out the guy in your comments who said some version of screw it, just move the entire team to Montana if that's what it takes to get Phil Jackson back. Like that, I literally cracked up laughing out loud.
I had somebody saying we should just FaceTime Phil Jackson every day. That's all you have to do.
Right? Yeah. Just put what is it, like the Sheldon robot or from Arrested Development, just the iPad, and he just can roam up and down the sideline like that. He doesn't have to ever leave his porch in Montana. So yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, this is tough because one, this is twice now in short order for this leadership group of the Lakers where they've been turned down by a coach. I get it. I know a lot of people are going to like the Coach K stuff and that, but that's kind of ancient history at this point, as far as we're talking about with recency. So the Ty Lue situation didn't get done. Mm-hmm. Now this one doesn't get done. If at the end of the day, if Dan Hurley ultimately said, I just don't want to leave UConn, or my family doesn't want to leave the Northeast where we're comfortable, whatever it is, you can't really blame the guy for that. Like, that's at the end of the day, that's if he's going to be happier there, so be it, he's happier there. But if this came down to anything with money, which I don't think, the way it's being talked about a little bit, I don't know that I agree with that. I know you had some stuff on that a little bit of, hey, that 100 million might not have been fully real.
Well, and when you do the math, because what was out there was 100 million for 8 years, and then what got reported was 70 million for 6 years. It sounds like it's a huge difference. It's like less than $1 million per season different. Sure. And then maybe there were incentives in there, whatever. But what I've been told is specifically, it didn't come down to money.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and
we'll see.
The reality is these college coaches now, the ones who are like the elite of the elite at the blue blood programs, which obviously Hurley is, and at UConn, he's going to get that kind of money anyway. Like, we don't know, but I'm sure he doubled his contract through this process. And honestly, that was probably coming because we saw Calipari leave Kentucky for Arkansas and make a lot of money. Bill Self just signed like an amended lifetime contract at Kansas, which is paying him a ton of money. So college coaches get paid now. It's not, I think there's still this perception of like they make, $150,000 and drive like a beat up Camry that's 10 years old to practice, and those kind of things as after they leave their family in their 2-bedroom apartment. Like, it doesn't work that way anymore at high end college basketball. Like, they're getting paid a lot like NBA coaches are, and quite frankly, they full control over just about everything in that spot. Because if you think about it, a college basketball coach is both coach and general manager, if you want to really kind of term it that way. Yeah, you have athletic directors, but in most cases, the coach is the one controlling that, whether it's football or basketball, depending on the school. So I don't know that the money really was the difference. I said this on Twitter when somebody said, hey, if that was the difference and they wouldn't go there, that's typical Lakers. And my response to that, which I've said on this show before, is then you got to sell the team. You cannot be the Lakers and not pay for players and coaches. This is one of the marquee franchises, not just in basketball, not just in the NBA, but in all of sports. I don't want to get into a rankings exercise of, all that, because that'll just make people mad. But the Lakers are up there. They're in the top, whatever amount you want to say, they're probably in it. So like, yeah, if it did come out that it was, all UConn had to do was go to 672. Like, all right, well, that's crazy then. Then you should be blowing that offer away and kind of, if you really wanted him, pull a Monty Williams and pay him enough that he can't say no. But I'm annoyed by the whole thing, because I was getting excited for the idea of the whole building a program. Where do they go with that now? What do they do with this? Like, I'm nowhere near the annoyance level that obviously you and Lakers fans are at. I wouldn't even suggest that. But yeah, now where do you turn to? Like, do you go back to JJ Redick? Do you go with James Borrego? Or we've got another news item about James Borrego, so that may not even be an option. Mark Stein over the weekend wrote about Jay Wright could have potentially been a stealth candidate that he was told to keep an eye on. Do you go that direction? That's he's now working as a commentator. Is there somebody else completely out of the blue you go with? I don't know. Where are you leaning on that?
I don't know. And that's the biggest thing is like they, coming out of this, like the sentiment was there wouldn't really be much of a backup plan from this.
Yeah.
Because obviously some stuff went down with the JJ Redick thing. There's clearly something messy was going on there. I don't know if they wind up going back to him, if they do that. I mean, Shams already reported the Lakers met with JJ Redick. Woj in his report said a first meeting with JJ Redick
was formal, I think he called it.
Right.
Yeah.
Clearly there's some stuff there, right? But it's I don't know exactly where they wind up going. I'm sure they're scrambling right now and trying to figure out, exactly what they want to do. I think there is some sentiment that they kind of got played a little bit by Woj and by Hurley to some degree, that there was a sense of, well, from Hurley's perspective and from Woj, right? It's, if you have any interest at all, you can have the conversation. And then at the very worst case, UConn's going to up their offer, and then you can take that and off you go. And that's what ended up happening. So I'm sure there is some frustration with that element of it. But I don't know. They're going to have to pivot quickly because the draft coming up, free agency, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not sure exactly where they turn to. I think at this point, anybody else you turn to, unfortunately, is going to, and it's through no fault of their own, if you turn to JJ Redick, it'll be a disappointment, right? Same thing with James Borrego. So it'll be a lot of guys that just feel like, oh, well, that's not as good. So they're going to have to figure something out. They're going to have to figure something quick and make a move. But
you're going to have to pay them more, right? Like, that's the other thing now too. You're not going to look. I'm just making this number up, so nobody run with this. But let's say you could have gotten James Borrego for 6 years. Or 4 years is the more standard coaching contract. 4 years at like $7 million a pop. He may be now like, hey, I actually want 5 and I want 9. I don't know that they can, any of the candidates that they've talked about can really push for the 10 plus million a year, because I don't think they're in that range of coach. But you're probably still looking at maybe a little more, maybe an additional year on the contract, because they're going to be like, hey, we know you have it, because we know you at a minimum offered it, right? Early 670. Like, so it's kind of like, you can't tell me you don't. That's why, right, when you're buying something at a yard sale or a flea market, you don't whip out your wad of cash, right, until you're ready to pay, because then they know how much you're carrying. So you just want to be cautious. And it's I saw some in the Lakers Nation live show y'all did this morning, or I guess this afternoon, whenever it was. It was like around lunchtime, I think.
It's all blurred together at this point.
Yeah, earlier today. We'll leave it at that. I saw some of the people saying this just goes to show you can never believe Woj. I'm turning off notifications. I'm gonna unfollow. Like, come on. Like, I get it. Woj might have helped out a buddy here, may have played a little bit of a game in all of this.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, if he's reporting I went back to look to make sure he never said it was done, because I think some people thought he reported it was a done deal. He said there's momentum or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Term.
No, he never said it was done. We would have been all over that if he said it was done.
Yeah, you would have been. Yeah, you'd still be recording probably today had it been, had that been the thing. So it's just, and my thing is like, you're going to be an informed NBA fan and just block out Woj. What are you going to wake up in September and be like, oh, cool, LeBron left and we have now, Paul George? Like, that's not going to be how it plays out. Like, of course you're going to still follow Woj. So I get it though. That's just people being mad. That's all part of it. It's happened before. It'll happen again. So the Reddit stuff is weird to me. Just to kind of, you brought it up. Like, I don't know where all that goes now. I got to wonder how comfortable he'd even be at this point, because there was a lot of reporting there that there was some weird stuff. Anyways, you kind of mentioned people can go look that up if they want to. So I don't really know with that one. And he may kind of look at it as be like, hey, now I'm walking in knowing I'm the second choice. Like, do I want to start my NBA coaching career that way in a difficult place with a ton of expectations on me?
Sure.
Maybe he doesn't want to do that. I don't know. We'll see, I guess, sometime within the next 2 weeks, because isn't that what they said? They really want to have somebody in place before the draft.
Yep. And we'll see who it is. Who it is. Maybe it'll be JJ, maybe it'll be Jay Wright, maybe it'll be James Borrego. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see.
Might have to wait for him to get off a duck boat in a parade, but it could be Sam Cassell. Might have to wait. Might have to wait a little bit for him to finish. That's just me making a finals joke, obviously. No,
Are
since people will ask. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, they're on, my friend. And I know
I don't think anybody's been watching.
I've been watching.
Let's jump here. Darvin Ham to the Bucks as an assistant coach. I was actually a little bit surprised that Darvin took an assistant job. I thought he would take a year off. Got offered by Mike Budenholzer to go to the Suns. Obviously explored things with the Warriors, but decided, he was from Milwaukee previously, so decided to go back to Milwaukee. He'll be an assistant coach there with Doc Rivers, and he obviously likes it there. So good for him for finding a new spot here for next season.
And hey, Darvin Ham, obviously in over his head, first-time head coach in the NBA, but he was a very well-respected assistant coach. Sometimes one of two things happen. Sometimes guys take a head coach job and we learn they're an assistant coach, and that's fine. And they become very well sought after and big time as assistant coaches. I mean, we've seen a lot of guys be very famous assistant coaches over the years. Sometimes that first job doesn't work out. Maybe he goes back, learns a little under Doc, and gets another chance somewhere else down the line, and it works out better. The only time we'll tell with that. But yeah, I was like you. I was kind of like, man, I thought especially after he turned out Budenholzer, I thought there might have been he takes a year off here and calls it a year. But one thing I know you and I were texting about this a little bit earlier today. Likely no offset for the Lakers. Right. Now, obviously, this is only about money being paid to people. There's nothing to do with salary cap or anything like that. But usually that's generally only the offset comes in with another head coaching job. I don't know the particulars of his contract, so I'd have to look and see. But generally, if they take another assistant job, that doesn't trigger that. But it may. I really don't know. I'm sure that'll come out at some point.
Yeah, and an assistant job, it's not like a head coach in terms of how much you're making. It's not going to offset a ton or anything like that, but just, something to note. James Borrego. Now, I know Kenny Atkinson was tied to the Cavs job at one point. Now, maybe James Borrego, according to Windhorst. I didn't see the report. I was busy frantically refreshing Twitter to see what was going on. But James Borrego to the Cavs, maybe?
Yeah, he was on this was on which ESPN Get Up. this morning on ESPN. Windhorst said other candidates they're interested in are moving on elsewhere. So James Borrego, who they interviewed about 10 days ago, he's getting momentum in Cleveland. This was that other candidates are moving on elsewhere. That was in relation to the Lakers after the Hurley news. So, or I guess while they were waiting, because that Hurley news hadn't broken at that point. But he said other candidates are interested in are moving on elsewhere. So James Borrego, who they interviewed about 10 days ago, he's getting momentum in Cleveland. He's expected to interview there early this week as a potential leading candidate developing with the Cavs. So that was the extent of the report.
Interesting. Okay. So Borrego in the mix there. Kenny Atkinson maybe in the mix. I mean, that's the other job. We talk a lot about the Lakers job. That's the other job that's out there right now. And a team that we could see making some moves this offseason too. So new coach coming in, and maybe we'll see what happens with Donovan Mitchell, but either Mitchell or Garland is probably going to be on the trade market. So some big things are going to be going on in Cleveland this summer.
If people are interested, I just posted their offseason preview on Spot Track just like maybe 20 minutes or so before we started recording here. So if people want to go check that out, you can go find that on there. I wrote all about Mitchell and Garland and Allen and Mobley, and then a whole bunch of other stuff that doesn't have as much impact, but I still think is important. And we've talked about it before. Cavs and Lakers are in similar spots as far as teams with star players, teams that intend to be competitive and win. So that's why you're hearing overlap in some of their candidates because of that reason. This was why when there was no disrespect meant towards the Wizards, but we're never like, hey, that Wizards job is also open, because they weren't exactly swimming in the same pool of candidates as the Lakers and Cavs. So yeah, if the Lakers are, I mean, let's put it this way. If you're James Borrego right now, you might be feeling a little like you might have a little leverage to squeeze a little bit more out of one side or the other here. And, you know, if they really want me, because he's the one really experienced guy that's been mentioned in conjunction with both jobs. So we'll see. I want to see him get another chance. I thought he did a nice job with Charlotte.
Yeah, we'll see if he does, if he gets that chance in Cleveland, if he gets it in LA, ultimately what that looks like for him. All right, Keith, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's talk a little bit about the finals, the dark cloud hanging over the league. Is Kyrie going to play in the finals? Because we haven't seen him yet.
Yeah, it's been a rough couple games for him, for sure. I feel this is obviously one of the major topics of discussion. Anytime I've done a radio spot here has been what's going on with Kyrie. You know, why is he not playing as well? I think the difference between Boston and a lot of other teams, when he draws that switch to get away from Holiday or White, he's getting a wing or a big that can move their feet. And that's the difference. Because normally what happens is he gets the big or the wing, they either back up off him because they know he's going to blow by him, and that allows him to get into a shot clean, or he does blow by them and he gets downhill to the rim. Boston switching guys on him that can move. Porzingis can move. Horford can move. Those guys, are out there. Even Pritchard and Hauser, they're just, hey, just hold up and steer him middle where the help will be if you need it. Like just do that. And Kyrie it's such a hard one because he's such a good tough shot maker where it's like you don't want to complain about some of his looks, but he's taking some really, really tough looks. And as much as everything else that's going on in the series, the Mavericks cannot beat the Celtics with him playing like this. He has to be considerably better because they need Luka and Kyrie to match or way exceed Tatum and Brown's production to have a chance, because the rest of the Celtics are doing way more than the rest of the Mavs. So that's the
rest of the Mavs have looked. The rest of the Mavs have looked awful. I mean, just awful. They've looked like the lights were too bright. Like they showed up on the main stage and went, "Oh my god!" And they can't figure out. It's been a weird. They do not look ready. Shots they were hitting in previous rounds not going down, and then the free throws in the last game were absolutely brutal. So I said going in that Kyrie had to be that Luka was going to be the best player in the series. I was pretty confident in that. I think that's still been.
And he probably has been.
Yeah, I think he has been. But Kyrie had to be decisively the third best player. I don't even know if he's been top 5 in the series, top 6, probably not. He's been that bad. And so, and that essentially, if you didn't get that, then the Mavs had no shot. So we'll see if Kyrie can bounce back at all in Dallas, but it has been a brutal showing from him. And then PJ Washington did some stuff, but other than that, most of the other Mavs have looked like the moment has been too big for them. Like they're not prepared for the stage. The lights were too bright or whatever it is. Maybe again, role players tend to play better at home, so maybe that's something that changes in Dallas. But they looked extremely disappointing from the Mavs perspective. Just pretty much no-showed for the first two games.
Yeah, and each of the first two games too, you're seeing the toll of Luka having to do everything, where he just doesn't have it in the tank at the end of these games. He's pretty wiped out, and he's not making shots. I tweeted it, so I'm not going to go through it here. People can go look that up if they want. But he was dominant in the first half. He was okay in the third quarter. Then in the fourth quarter, he didn't really do anything. I think he shot 1 of 6 in the fourth quarter. Everything was short too. Just couldn't get to where he wanted to be. His one made basket was a layup where he Horford and Holiday blew a switch, and he was able to split them, and then Horford fouled him for an and one. But yeah, just that's the hard thing. I think too, you're seeing the fact that Celtics, when they have everybody, the 8 guys they play can all defend, they can all shoot,
Right.
They can all pass, they can all dribble. They don't worry about any of those guys. No, Pritchard, Hauser, those guys are never making all defense teams. I would never even begin to suggest that, but they can hold up and they can execute in the scheme. And Pritchard's he's annoying because he'll go down and pick you up 80 feet away. And then it's just like, man, now I got to deal with this guy. Like he's just on me and just in my way. And that just leads something to it too. So, they're making Luka work on both ends. I think it's wearing him down a little bit. This was kind of, I'm not going to say I saw it going this way, but this is not a huge surprise to me, given what I've watched the Celtics team do all year long. Game 3 obviously is the series, because if they go down 0-3, they're not coming back. So I would expect Dallas's very best game. They're home, and crowd should be fired up, should give them a huge lift. But let's see what happens. And obviously we're going to find out what Kristaps Porzingis left the game with. It was the opposite leg. He had the right calf strain that he missed the month of action with. The second game, this one was a left leg injury of some sort, but he said he was fine, but then did say they were going to do imaging. I don't know if that's just being safe. Joe Mazzulla said he had zero concern about it. So we'll find out. Probably not going to find out anything today. It'll probably be tomorrow that we'll get a better sense of where that's going on.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens there.
Stu should be the next Lakers coach.
Makes his appearance. Might have to be. Run out of options.
Do it. You negotiate that deal, right? You take a little break. 6 years, $50 million for Stu.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. We could do that. We can make that happen, right?
There you go.
All right, let's see here. We've got Sasha Vezenkov wants to leave the Kings, but can he contractually? Like, what does that look like? How does that? I mean, we see this sometimes, like in soccer, where a player, a player in a club kind of decide they're going to part ways, but he's under contract. So how is this going to work? He apparently wants to leave Sacramento.
Yeah, I was having a nice little slow ease into my Saturday morning, and then I started getting people sending this to me, which was Stu's about to go Godzilla on the set.
He was about to start pulling plugs, and so I'm like, okay, now time to hop down.
So this news, Saturday morning, people were like, hey, can he do this? I started getting tagged in tweets, and then I had a couple people email and DM me, and I was like, what is happening here? So I tracked down the story. It came, I believe the reporter is Greek, but it just covers European basketball as a whole. And it basically said that he's informed the Kings he's not coming back next season. There was a report out of Sacramento earlier in last week that was the Kings informed him he's not really part of their rotation plans for next year.
Right.
But the Kings can do that. Sorry, anybody's not watching the show.
If you're listening to the podcast,
banding attention right now. He's like, you will pet me, sir.
He's sitting next to me staring, like I feel him staring daggers at me. Then he finally just reaches out and like starts to hit me. Like, hey,
Oh, man.
come on.
Let
I want
have
more
it.
pets.
Yeah.
He's
He
demanding.
knows you're a little stressed. He's trying to keep you nice and chill and relaxed and calm.
Yeah, that's
So,
what it is.
yeah. So here's the deal with this. He can't just unilaterally say, I'm not coming back. He has a
Right.
fully guaranteed contract. People asked me, well, he could retire, right? And then unretire and sign. No, it doesn't work that way. What
Right. Still
happens when
safe.
a player wants to leave the NBA for an overseas team or vice versa? They have to get what's called a FIBA letter of clearance, which basically is the other team has agreed to let the player go, which is more often we see it coming into the NBA, which becomes the idea of the player comes in and FIBA says, yes, the guy's clear to sign his rookie contract or whatever, the buyouts are necessary, or he's completed his other contract or whatever. This would not pass that because the Kings would presumably say, no, we're not just going to eat because he's got $6 million plus on the books for next year. They're not just going to eat $6 million. That's a team that is, if they sign Malik Monk, could be dealing with first apron concerns and the like. So they're not just going to want to eat that. Now, there was a piece of reporting that said he may just want another spot in the NBA. Totally fair. He probably wants to play. I'm guessing is his real thing. Is
But then ask for
I
a
want to
trade.
play. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's kind of what this is coming down to. My guess is we see one of two things. Either he is traded and plays for another team in the NBA, or he's traded in some form of salary dump move, and then the other team maybe can is in a better spot to just eat his contract. They do that, and then he moves on and probably back over to Europe. So I'm gonna guess that's how this probably plays out. I don't know. Maybe the Kings say, "Too bad, dude. Show up, and we'll figure it out." So I had high hopes. He doesn't move his feet very well. And I think that's why Mike Brown didn't trust him to play. He wasn't a good enough defensive player, but he can shoot. He's a pretty solid off-ball mover on offense. Put him on a team with a bunch of good passers that need some shooting from the forward spot. There's a rotation player in there. So we'll see if it pops out in the NBA or not.
Yeah, I think ultimately he winds up getting traded to somebody. Maybe he's one of the draft night deals that we'll get, but
it could be.
he gets put into a trade there. But
Small
the Kings are one of the
too.
teams.
Super easy to move. That's I think it's 6.6 million. Like that's not that's fine. Or the Kings might be making bigger moves, right? If that's a nice number to toss in on top of Harrison Barnes' contract to get to like 50 million or whatever. If the Kings are going bigger name player.
All right. Speaking of which, let's get into draft trades. We talked about how there's a lot of first round picks that are available right now. Teams are very, very willing to move their picks, either to move out of the draft to try to get win now pieces or move up or whatever. So we could see a very active trade market really come to fruition. Could be draft night, could be within a few days before the draft as well. But what are we looking at as far as teams moving up? I know we've looked at a few clubs maybe looking to move up. Like I think the Grizzlies were connected to Donovan Clingan, maybe moving up to 3 to try to get him. What else is going on the draft day trade market?
Yeah, the Bulls are mentioned for Clingan too, but I'm going to save them for a moment because they're so mentioned for another player. So it was the Bulls, Grizzlies, Thunder, and Jazz all moving up for Donovan Clingan. The Grizzlies and Thunder make a lot of sense. Teams that Grizzlies could really use a center. The Thunder, if they think Holmgren, they want to move him more to playing the 4 more often. That could make a lot of sense for them to go get Clingan. We obviously know they could kind of say, hey, you want 12 plus 5 other picks? Let's go and make it happen if they wanted to. The Jazz were really interesting because Walker Kessler's still there. Like, are we out on him? Do they just feel like Clingan is that much better of a prospect?
And
than
what a difference
Kessler's
a year
done?
makes if they are out on him.
Yeah. Last year's playing for Team USA.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is, that was probably in retrospect shouldn't have been a thing, but I mean, yeah, it's just different. Yeah. I mean, everybody was all about this guy a year ago, and this year didn't play as much, lost kind of his role for a little bit there as a starter. Just weird season for him, but he's super young, so I'm not going to write him off yet, but just a little weird. And then with the Bulls are also interested in maybe moving up for Matas Buzelis, who's he's Lithuanian, but he's a Chicago kid. He was born and raised in Chicago. So you got that part of it there to maybe factor in as well. So just interesting that we're 2.5 weeks out and we're starting to get the move up conversation starting versus just the everybody wants out of this draft. Everybody wants to trade out. So that's going to be it's always more fun when you have teams trying to go both ways because everybody's just trying to trade out or back. Nothing happens because nobody wants to move up. So,
Well, if teams are doing it right, they should have their big board, their draft board of 1 through 100 or whatever of the players that they've got ranked, but they should also have draft tiers set up, and so they should be looking to move to attack players in certain tiers. And so it's possible that and those tiers may look different depending on the team and how they view things. Everything's in the eye of the beholder. But if a team sees an opportunity, knowing that there's like 4 or 5 teams that aren't right now rumored to be moving their first round pick or willing to move on from their first round pick, maybe this is a year where you see teams say, oh, well, we see a tier break right at this spot. Let's try to move up to get just before the tier break and see if we can do that. And maybe they feel like there's more opportunities to do so this year because of, again, that mobility that I think we see in the first round. So I think I hope, Keith, I don't want to set the bar too high, but I hope we are on the path towards a really, really exciting draft night with a lot of trades and a lot of movement, because it seems like the environment is right for that to happen. You never know when a trade's actually going to go down, but this is the type of environment that you'd be looking for to see a lot of trades take place.
Yeah, I think the very compressed timeline with the draft being late this year too, the draft will happen and then it's only a couple days later free agency opens. I think there's a chance we see some of these stuff that'll be, it's going to be the typical kid gets drafted by Team X, puts on their hat, and we already know he's never going to play for them because there's a trade announced. But I think teams are going to use that as, rather than saying the 30th at 6 p.m. is the jumping off point for the offseason. I think because the trade market's going to be so active this summer, I think that really starts draft night, or maybe a day or two out from the draft, but draft week at the latest, but definitely draft night, just because everything is so tight this year. All of these windows are so compacted together. So, yeah, it should be fun. And the last thing I'll say too, because we're hearing player names attached, that's when you start looking for targeted move up trades. Players still on the board, teams may be a little shaky about picking them. Team maybe wants to move back for future draft capital or whatever. That's when you have the prime move up option for a team to jump up and get a guy. So I think it's going to be an active draft as far as that. I mean, second round, that could be complete and utter chaos. We're already four teams with their own pick in the second round. That's it. Every other pick's been moved, and 2 of them are forfeited. So we'll see. And in the middle of the afternoon on a Thursday for the second round.
We'll be here.
Yeah, we'll be here for sure.
All right, let's get it. Oh, speaking of trades and free agency and all that, the Suns are looking for everything: a point guard, a wing, and a backup big. But they will only have veteran minimums to use unless something drastic happens to their roster that we're not anticipating. But they will only have veteran minimums to target. So they are looking for all these things. This is the situation they've kind of spent themselves into, where now they're going to only have veteran minimums to use, and they won't be able to aggregate players in a trade or anything like that. So we'll see what ultimately happens here with this Suns team, but they're going to have to do some bargain shopping and see if they can find a rotation piece or two for the minimum.
Yeah, the only thing I really have to add on this is I did radio in Phoenix this morning, and they were like, how do you make it work when you have veteran minimums? We signed all these guys last year, and only like 1 or 2 of them worked out kind of okay. And I said, I treat it like me playing pickup now. I'm a volume guy. I'm going to get up a whole lot of shots and hope enough of them go in that I had a pretty good run. And that's really all you can do. You're just going to have to keep cycling through guys until finally, hopefully 1 or 2 of them pops. And obviously longer term strategy, you need to be a lot more focused on drafting and developing and those kind of things, because you have more control there. Versus veteran minimum. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But yeah, I mean, this report made me laugh when I saw it over the weekend, because I was like, okay, cool. So you need like one of everything. Oh, all right, sure, I guess. Like in point guard too, it was pretty clear they're not looking for necessarily a starter, because they're pretty committed to the
Chris Paul,
Booker Beal backcourt, but it's just somebody else who could come in and play.
Would it be funny if they called up Chris Paul again?
Oh my God, that'd be hilarious. I threw out like old friend campaign, I guess, maybe. Like, why not? Like, I mean, you could go that direction. He's going to be available. Real options like Monte Morris could make sense. if he's completely priced out of anything more anywhere else. Like, he's a guy who I like, could play. DeLon Wright. Aaron Holiday had a really nice season for Houston this year. And Aaron Holiday's done a nice job kind of becoming an off-ball shooter, which who can defend point guards, which is really kind of what you need, because it's not like you're bringing in Chris Paul and saying, here's the ball for 60 possessions a game, right, and run things. So yeah.
All right, let's get to the Pistons. Are expecting to make a max offer to Cade Cunningham. This is where we have to remember that not all max contracts are made equally. They're very much not. But still, are you surprised that the Pistons, given the state of the team, given the struggles they've had, would go full max for Cade, or this is just the going rate?
I'm not. He's the best thing they have going. I think he has shown enough to, you put him in this place. I don't know that he gets necessarily the designated player language, which could bump him to 30%. I think that becomes this is a kind of test case for Trajan Langdon in the new Pistons front office to be, hey, we want to lock you in at 25. Maybe you go to 30 with the idea of, hey, if you make all NBA, fine, we're happy to give it to you, because then we're probably way ahead and you're way ahead of where we think you're at. But I thought he put together a fairly nice year in a really ugly, messy situation in Detroit. So I'm not the slightest bit surprised. And when you're this bad, you can't mess around with your guys. You have to, if you believe in a guy, you have to lock him up and then hope for the best. And if it doesn't work out, guess what? You're probably resetting everything in a couple of years anyway. So you'll just trade him. At no point is that contract going to turn so sour that it's like, oh no, this is terrible. Like, you do what you got to do and move on.
Yeah. That's where they're going to be at with him. And again, I'm not surprised that that's ultimately the deal they're going to give him. Let's jump here. The Magic are reportedly suitors for Paul George and Klay Thompson. I don't know if they land either one, but I mean, when you've got cap space and you've got this current market, you might as well be in the mix for some of these guys. Sometimes teams get used to leverage more money out of incumbent teams and all that kind of stuff too. But
or coaches in the college
or coaches, sure, or whatever, right? That definitely happens. Oh my gosh. Oh, I need a drink. The Paul George and Klay Thompson, neither one obviously fits the age timeline of the Orlando Magic, but both guys I think would make the team better, at least in the short term. I don't think I see either guy actually winding up there, but if you're the Magic, why not at least be in the mix? And we'll see. I like if I'm Orlando, I would rather see like Malik Monk land with the Magic and be a guy they can have for the next 5 years than get Paul George or Klay Thompson, while knowing that Paul George and Klay Thompson are much better players. But I think it's, Monk and Klay maybe is debatable. But anyway, you get my point.
I get it.
Long term, though, you get a younger player that could potentially be part of the team for a while. So when they really hit their peak, this is a player that's still at the height of their powers versus a Paul George or something who's 34. And, when the team gets to the point where you've got Paulo is at his peak and everything, this guy's already on the decline.
Yeah. I think one of the things that gets way overblown by a lot of fans is the idea of everybody needs to be on the same timeline. One problem that comes, we talked about it pretty extensively with Oklahoma City, then you got to pay everybody all at once. Sure. And that becomes a huge challenge. And the other thing, what happens when a young team gets good, like Orlando did, makes steps to the playoffs, then we start saying, who's that veteran guy that can take them over the top, right? So that's where I don't get too obsessed around it. Everybody's got to be on the exact same timeline. Yes. I like Detroit, I don't think should be going out and signing Paul George and Klay Thompson.
No.
They're super far away. But if Orlando wanted to get in the mix, one thing that's cool is, like, it's just fun that the Magic are even being mentioned for guys like this, because it's been a long time, right? It's been since the Dwight Howard years that they've been mentioned for guys like this. So that part's pretty neat. It sounds weird to say this. I think in a lot of ways, Klay Thompson makes a lot more sense, because you would probably do it on a shorter term deal of maybe only a couple years. And then if it's not working out, you can just get out of it fairly quickly. Where Paul George, you're going to have to lock in. It have to be a 4-year max deal. Paul George is obviously the better player, but the fit gets a little weird. Banchero and Wagner have the ball a lot. You don't want Jalen Suggs completely disregarded to becoming an off-ball stand in the corner guy fully. So just the fits get a little weird, but yeah, I mean the Magic they're playing a different game now with free agents. It's no longer picking off undervalued veterans in the second week of free agency. You're in it now, and that's a different place to be. I wrote about them last week. That's also up on Spot Track. It's got to be now, though. If not now, next summer, you're really in a 1-year window because then extensions kick in for Wagner, for Suggs, then Banchero the year after. You're going to start to get pretty expensive here in the next couple of years. So you got to kind of take advantage of while you can now, while those guys are still on their rookie deals.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Orlando does, who they ultimately. I mean, they need some perimeter shooting, and if it's obviously if it's Paul George, great. That's going to make them significantly better. Klay, it's Malik Monk, maybe D'Angelo Russell. There's a few guys that they're going to be in on. I think they land somebody. It'll just be interesting to see ultimately who that is. I think for Paul George and Klay, they're going to act more as the boogeyman than anything else out there to kind of scare their teams to give them more money. But we'll see. I think it's more likely, particularly in the case of Paul George, that he would wind up in Philly before Orlando. But as you said, at least Orlando's getting mentioned here.
Yeah. Yep. Completely different world. Yeah, than what they've been living in. I will say, to your point, I think Orlando becomes the biggest leverage team this summer potentially because they're good with cap space and roles to offer. Philly's in a little bit of a different spot. Because Philly's they're going to be actually in it to get guys. I don't know how much people are going to leverage Philly. Like Paul George may leverage a fifth year out, or I guess he can't do fifth, but an extra year and extra money out of the Clippers. He may do that over Philly, but like Philly's not going to get leveraged by just an average free agent that's out there. But I think Orlando could, compare to like Detroit, where it's like, hey, if you want to go take their money and win 25 games, all right, I guess have at it. With Orlando, it's a little bit more like, all right, maybe we do need to take this a little more serious. And for what it's worth, you mentioned his name a couple times. I'd be very in on Malik Monk if I were the Magic.
He'd be
that might be my number one target on the board.
Yeah, he'd be a fantastic fit there. All right, let's finish with this. Bronny worked out for the Lakers, worked out for the Suns, but not necessarily completely writing off the idea of working out for some other teams as well. That was, I believe, late last week. I don't know. Like, I think Bronny gets drafted. I think his floor is going to remain the Lakers at 55. But I wonder if maybe this is, he slipped a little bit on a few draft boards here that he was rising. I wonder if there was a little bit of slippage somewhere. Now it's like, okay, well, let's get in front of a couple more teams and see if we can solidify that draft spot. This is me speculating. I don't know, but it's just something that, why would he then suddenly go and want to work out for more teams? Maybe he's looking to solidify draft spot while knowing that he does have that fail safe at 55 worst case.
Yeah. And this one it's a little different because he did take part in the combine. He did all the stuff at the combine. So teams did see him there. It's not like he just showed up, did his medicals and left. Teams did get to see him do basically everything there. So this one's a little different from the standpoint of this is not exactly the same as a player trying to really truly control the process by I'm only going to meet with certain teams, try to get drafted. But where you're missing out on with the workouts are one thing, but it's really a guy maybe in a group workout playing some 3-on-3, but for the most part, they're going 1-on-0 against chairs or coaches or whatever. But what it's really about is you really get into the mind of the player. You can talk to them the entire time, have conversation, get to know how they fit, that sort of stuff. So, yeah, they get him in front of a couple more teams, see if you can push him up to the middle of the second round versus the latter part. But I'm with you. I think his floor is absolutely the Lakers. And if you're the Lakers at 55, you literally have nothing to lose there.
Yeah.
Like that's not.
You might as well.
There's 3 more picks in the draft this year because there's only 58 picks. And you're probably whoever you would have drafted at 55 will be just as happy to come to you on an undrafted contract anyway. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. Well, we got through a lot.
Yeah, we got through it.
Yeah. We got through a lot today. Keith, it's been a rough weekend. It's been a rough day. I'm going to cook myself up a steak. I think I might pour myself a rum and Coke, something like that. And I'm going to try to enjoy a stress-free evening as much as possible. That's my plan from here after I get this show out there.
I kind of hope that turns into many rum and cokes, and then the Lakers announce a coach, and we get to see
God.
bombed Trev live on air.
that would be that would be fun. That would be fun. Well,
just let me know. It'd be fun for me. I mean, I'm having a hell of a weekend, so if that tops it off here to start the week, I'm pumped.
Keith, it wasn't just it was obviously this Hurley thing. My sleep schedule has been all screwed up because Woj released that stuff in the middle of the night. So I've been setting an alarm starting at 5 a.m. going off every half hour to make myself check so I don't miss the breaking news. So that's the way I've been sleeping the last few days. There was the Celtic stuff, obviously, but then Team USA, that the soccer game, that didn't feel great either. I'm like, okay, the Dodgers at least got a couple wins, and I know it was your Yankees they were playing, but they went two for three. So I had that, but that soccer game too, I was like, I was looking forward to it, and then I couldn't even finish it. I had to shut it off. I'm like, this is awful.
Yeah, it was over by tap, and then the way it ended was even worse. Yeah, it was funny. I told you I went and got a new phone this weekend. So then we were out I had literally gotten home. My buddy's like, "Are you watching the USA game?" And I was like, crap, no, I just forgotten it started then. And I turned it on. I'm like, what the hell, dude? It's already 2-0. Like, why? Like, and he's like, yeah. It's funny. He is he's Colombian, so like he was, but by the end he was mad because he's like, look, I don't care. Colombia beats them. I still get to enjoy it. But he's like, didn't need to be like this.
Right.
So he was even too. Yeah, I don't know. We'll do more soccer stuff later this summer because I'm not super thrilled with the direction of the U.S. team right now. Yeah,
that was not great. Studio Stu just decided to do a wind sprint across the room here for no apparent reason. I don't know what's gotten in him, but
he's done.
Anyway,
he wants some of that steak and rum and coke too.
That's right. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Oh man.
All right. Well, everybody, hope you. There he goes again. What the hell, dude? Like he's an old man. He's 12, and now he's doing sprints across the room. All right.
Getting his cardio in.
He's getting cardio in. He's getting cardio in, kind of like the Mavs other guys.
Oh man.
Oh brutal. No. We got to end it there. Thanks everybody for joining the show. Make sure you subscribe. Don't forget to check out the Basketball Bulletin, basketballbulletin.substack.com. You can check out the YouTube channel. I'm going to get some more stuff up there real soon. But thank you everybody. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.